Anyone can tell you that you should get rid of your clutter, but what they probably won't tell you is how much time this can take. I've heard rumors, and I'm sure you've heard them too, that clutter is something you can address on a Saturday morning or in a weekend or as part of spring cleaning. But guess what? The modern idea of clutter, in which the average person has more clutter than useful possessions, has been with us only since 1980, less than 1 century. But spring cleaning is an idea that was invented centuries ago. So if your attempts to solve your clutter problem in one big push have fallen short, there's a reason for it. Modern clutter is bigger than that. Hi, I'm Rick Aster, the shamanic economist, and today I want to tell you 5 reasons why, when it comes to clutter clearing, the gradual approach is better. Reason number 1 is that the gradual approach to clutter clearing is smart. And what this means is that you will make better decisions this way. So why is this important? People don't necessarily think of it this way, but clutter clearing is just a non-stop barrage of questions, decisions. You'll never make so many decisions so quickly as when you're going through your clutter. Can I keep this? Can I keep this? Can I keep this? Can I keep this? If you try to make thousands of good rational decisions in one day, it's not going to go well. Your brain isn't physically equipped to make that many rational decisions in such a short time, which means you'll burn out. You don't want that to happen. You reduce this load on the brain by scaling things down so that you're only making, let's say, 50 or 100 decisions at one time. But it's more than just this. You'll make better decisions because you can focus on the most obvious, clearest decisions that you can make. So these are easier. So I like to say you're going to look at your worst stuff, and worst isn't really the ideal word here, but there are certain things you own that just obviously are not a part of your future. And maybe that's 0.5% of your stuff, but you can go get that stuff that's not that hard in terms of making the decisions, and then you're done for the day. You're not working so hard at making the decisions, but you're also making the easier decisions. You're going to make them faster. It's going to be easier on you. It's just going to go better this way. Now, your goal might be to get rid of 50% or 90% of your possessions, but if you have the luxury of time, I would suggest to think in terms of taking away about 1% of your possessions per week and then stopping for the week. Now, this can seem really slow, but if you think about it, you can take away 90% of your possessions in 90 weeks. That's less than 2 years. So it's not really that slow in terms of remaking your life, but it is slow in terms of how hard the work is going to be. In other words, it's never going to be really that hard to take away 1% of your possessions in a week. We want to keep it easy because that reduces the stress on you and it reduces the work. It's less work this way. Taking a gradual approach to clutter clearing. Reason number 2. The gradual approach is smooth. You're not introducing these big changes, so you're giving yourself time to adjust to each change as you make it. Now, this is important because when you take some of your possessions away, there are little adjustments in your way of living, in your physical surroundings. You might have some emotional adjustments, and there's a little bit of a shift in your identity. Whenever you keep something you're not actually using, it's because you've made that thing a part of your identity, and your identity has to shift to catch up with those changes. Now, this kind of change can take about 5 days to fully integrate, and what happens then is that you'll find that there's another little cluster of your possessions that is obviously out of place, that you can look at and say, those things don't belong here. So you can do the whole process all over again then. Reason number 3, the gradual approach to clutter clearing is quiet. And this means you're working below the radar. People won't even notice that you're making a change. You'll notice it the day you make it, but in a few days you'll get used to the change. But the people around you, you'd be surprised how much of a change you can make before people start really noticing. I saw this when I lost weight. I lost 10 pounds, 20 pounds, no one noticed. I lost another 10 pounds, still nobody noticed. When you're approaching an ideal, like your ideal weight or your ideal amount of possessions, you can make a really big change. And if you do it gradually, people won't even notice or remember that you made it. They'll think you were that way all along. So why do you want to work below the radar? Well, this is to minimize the resistance that you're going to run into. Some of the people around you may not agree with some of the decisions you're making about the clutter, and they may want to argue with you to say, you can't really sell your baseball card collection, can you? Or whatever objection they're going to raise. And that just adds to the energy that you have to put in to make the changes that you're making, which are already a substantial effort. Now, I must hasten to add that the most dangerous critic is your own inner demons, who may have these same cluttering, hoarding tendencies. The faster you move, the more you're going to trigger the inner part of you that wants to hold on to everything. If you go so slowly that it barely looks like you're moving, then these parts of you will not be so triggered, and you won't meet this inner resistance. So you won't have the resistance from the people around you because they won't notice that you're shifting, and you won't have the resistance from your inner parts, your inner hoarder and your inner clutterer, because you'll be moving at this comfortable pace and you're giving all the parts of you the time that it takes to adapt to each little change. The gradual approach to clearing clutter, reason number 4, the gradual approach is gentle, and this means that you're working within your capacity. So if you're exposed to dust, you're going to have time to recover from the dust. You made a lot of decisions, you'll give your brain time to recover. You took out the trash can is full, you can get the trash can emptied before the next time you come back and throw more things away. So in all these different ways, the gradual approach gives you time to stay in the rhythm of the world around you and within your own ability to recover from the work you're doing. Now, I have a story about this. When I moved into this house, it came with tons of clutter. And I had to just throw this stuff in the trash week after week. The clutter was not in the house itself, but under the porch, in the garage. These spaces just loaded with stuff from previous owners' attempts to turn the house into something more than it was. So a lot of these projects had failed or never got done, and the clutter was just sitting. To keep the house looking good, they hid this under the porch and in the garage, and I had to throw it all away after I bought the house. And this took me 5 years, just filling up the trash can every week and taking it out to the street. But this gradual approach was easier than if I had, paid for a truck to load everything up and take it away. That would have been a lot of work for me all at once, and it would have been an expense I didn't want to take on. So I got it all done gradually. That was the easy way to do it. Reason number 5. The gradual approach to clutter is practical, meaning you are more likely to reach your goal, to reach your target, if you take the gradual approach than if you make an all-out effort. I have to say it is possible to make an all-out effort and reach a clutter goal. And let's say you can get 10 family members to help you, and everyone can agree on how things should go, and people work together smoothly, and there There's no time lost to arguments. Maybe you can get through all your clutter in a few days, and sometimes that is the right thing. But even if you do that, it's going to take a few weeks for everyone to recover from that big effort. And then there are problems. You probably weren't very emotionally present during that all-out effort, which means it's very likely that the same pattern of clutter is going to build up again over the next couple of years because you never really resolved the energetic and emotional issues surrounding the clutter. So you just get the clutter coming back if you go through it quickly. Now, if you go through it gradually, you have time to address the emotional issues, the resistance, the energetic issues. So it's much more likely when you take the gradual approach that you end up resolving these issues. But let's be realistic about this. If you try to take on your clutter in 1, 2, 3, 4 weekends, what's likely to happen is that you make only a little progress. You can see that you've fallen short. There's a lot of clutter that you haven't gotten to. At some point, you're just going to give up and say, I'm not powerful enough to deal with my clutter. I'm just going to have to live with it. So the once and done approach is likely to lead to this kind of failure. The gradual approach, you avoid this issue. You're proceeding at a comfortable pace so that you never reach that point where you say, clutter got the best of me. It's always steady, comfortable progress, and you can keep at it for a long time and eventually get to that goal. Now, I mentioned that the gradual approach is best if you have the luxury of time, and you don't always have the luxury of time. So now I want to mention 5 times when you should not take the gradual approach to clutter, but instead you should move as fast as you feel comfortable going. And these are, if you're moving, if you feel jaded, if you have a sudden clarity about your life, if you're stuck with your clutter for a period of time, or if you have help in dealing with your clutter. So let's start with the first one. If you're moving, you know the approximate date you're moving. You want to move less stuff if you can, because moving 10 times as much stuff as you need to is expensive and is not an option, in my opinion, if there's any alternative. So you want to go quickly, make compromises in the quality of the result, just to avoid the effort and expense of moving a lot of stuff unnecessarily. So that's the biggest occasion when you want to clear clutter quickly and not worry too much about the fallout that comes with that. Now the second one, if you're feeling jaded, wow. That's a moment when you can see everything that's wrong with your life. That also means you can suddenly see everything that's wrong with your stuff. And so, my goodness, just go ahead, put that stuff that has everything wrong with it into boxes, put the boxes in a stack somewhere. Maybe you can come back to them in a few weeks and go through them and say, yeah, I don't see why I had these things. But if there is something that you realize you put in those boxes incorrectly, just in the mood of the moment, you'll be able to go back and get those. And then after you've given yourself a few weeks, you can just get rid of all of those boxes, most likely donate most of those things. Now, it can be kind of similar if you have a sudden clarity and epiphany about your life, suddenly a new perspective. This tells you maybe what your purpose is, where you're going in life. And this thing about knowing where you're going is what helps you understand the value of your possessions. So when you know where you're going, some of your possessions suddenly don't have any value at all, and those you're ready to part with. So go ahead and part with those as soon as you know you're ready. Now, sometimes you're just stuck with your clutter. You might be in quarantine at home. You might be in a hotel room while you're traveling. You're done with your work for your day and you're in your hotel room. Go through your bags and see what clutter you've accumulated over the course of the day. But if you're in quarantine at home, go through your clutter, go through it with however much energy you can put into it every day, as long as you have that opportunity. And finally, if someone has agreed to help you with your clutter, that is such a valuable thing. You don't want to waste that opportunity. That is not the time to stop and worry about the details of exactly the right possessions to keep, making the exact perfect decision. You want to instead make the best use of this help. If, for example, you're able to move certain things that you wouldn't be able to move on your own, or if someone is equipped to help you make better decisions on a certain category of your things, make good use of that help while it's there. Get as much done as you can. If it's just someone there with emotional support, that can be a valuable thing too. And you want to make good use of that resource while it lasts. Make as much progress as you can during that period. So to recap, the gradual approach to clutter is better because it's smart, smooth, quiet, gentle, and practical, which means you're going to make better decisions. It'll be easier to make the decisions. You're going to work below the radar, so you'll meet less resistance. You're going to be working within your capacity, and you're much more likely to reach the goal that you set out to get to. And if you're in one of these special conditions where it makes sense to go faster, then don't be afraid to go faster with your clutter also. Thank you for watching. My name again is Rick Aster. The channel is Take Chances, Pay Attention. I will be back soon with more thoughts and tips on clutter clearing. Good luck clearing your clutter.